Good afternoon, everyone. Today I want to show you a different way to think about SAP Material Master Data Management. Instead of working through traditional SAP screens and transaction codes, we're going to look at how our Evolve MCP Server can turn that experience into something much more conversational, streamlined, and outcome-driven. As you know, AI is everywhere right now. AI agents are starting to appear everywhere across the business, whether that's in sales, support, finance, or even data operations. But no matter where they show up, they all have the same dependencies. The need for the right context and trusted data to make useful decisions. And that's especially true in an SAP environment where accuracy, control, and data quality really matter. And that's going to be the theme for this demo. We're not just showing AI talking about SAP, but we're going to show how AI can interact with SAP in a way that is grounded, controlled, and actually useful. So with that in mind, what happens when we bring this idea into the SAP Material Master Data Management? Traditionally, even something as simple as reviewing and updating a material requires jumping between transaction codes. You're navigating the various screens, you're selecting views, and reestablishing context each time, which can slow the users down and increase the chances for mistakes. It works, but it's not exactly a smooth user experience. What we're doing here is basically changing how users can interact with SAP. So instead of thinking in terms of transactions and screens, the users will simply describe in natural language what they want to do. The system can retrieve the material, identify the issues, and then help apply updates all within one flow. So the user is no longer managing the mechanics of SAP, but they're focused on the outcome. For the demonstration, I'm going to start by creating a material maintenance script as the foundation. We're going to expose it through an API-driven approach and then make it available through an AI agent. From there, I'll use natural language to request it to retrieve a material, inspect it for issues, and then make or suggest corrections in real time without going into the SAP GUI. There will be no switching transactions, no manual navigation, just a very guided, intelligent approach. This process is powered by a few key components working together. Claude will provide the natural language interface so the user can simply describe what they are looking for within SAP. Evolve with MCP sits in the middle, maintaining context and orchestrating the workflow. And then our Automate Studio will execute those actions into SAP with the control, validation, and the governance you'd expect. And finally, SAP will remain the system of record. So while the experience feels conversational on the front end, the execution behind it is still structured and governed. To level set, since I'm not sure how many of you have used or seen SAP, if I'm working with materials, there are three common ways that I can interact with them. One is the T-code MM01, which creates the material. But for today's demo, I'm going to focus on the other two. So if I want to look at a particular material, maybe you want to check the description, the pricing, or other details, I use T-code MM03. Think of it as the read-only view. So here I would put in my material number. I would then have to select the view. And then, as you can see, all of the fields are locked out, so I'm simply reviewing the data, but I'm not making any changes. If I spot something that needs to be updated, maybe the weight is wrong or the description needs to be fixed, then I need to change over to MM02, which is my change material. And again, I need to re-enter in the material. I need to re-enter the view. And then I can see that all the fields are then available to me. So I can come in, I can make whatever edits I need to make. I'll say that this is 5. Keep that there and put that as 4 or 3. When I press enter, save it. And now you can see at the bottom that that material has now changed. And what we typically see is users bouncing back and forth between these two. They first look something up, realize there's an issue, then they go into the change mode to fix it. With the Studio solution, we can quickly build and create scripts that interact with SAP with little to no coding. And Studio can use these various types of scripts to include Excel, XML, or in today's particular demonstration, JSON scripts. So instead of expecting someone to build or understand JSON manually, I can use Studio to generate the structure for me through a simple recording. Here I've gone ahead and I've created the script that we just looked at as an MMO2 and manually entered the data as we just did on the screens. Studio followed me through the various screens and identified the fields I touched and the values I entered. And from that, it helped create the foundation of this JSON. The top of the screen are the various fields that I interacted with, as well as the values that I entered into the screens. The bottom portion is a basic JSON format. Now, as I mentioned, Studio was designed for the user, not IT. So instead of creating the layout or forcing me to manually understand JSON, I can simply come in, and in my case, I'm going to automap, and it's going to take the fields that I interacted with and load them into the JSON file. Now, I'm going to come into my run. And now that we have mapped our fields, I'm ready to start testing. When I click on Validate, the first thing it's going to ask me to do is save both the script and the file. So I'm just going to highlight this, and I'm going to change both, and click Save. And it will then begin validating the information. When I submit this, we'll now see a run response. It's going to come back either as true, so that passed, or false, that it failed. Now that we see that we've completed our testing, the next thing I want to do is I want to submit this script to the Evolve platform to update and begin assembling the API to be used by our AI tool. So I'm going to here on Evolve, click on Submit. If I wanted to give it a brief, put in a particular category for tags, I can do that. I can put in a description. I'm going to click Next. I'm verifying, as you can see, that this is going to be put into our SAP Data API Script solution. Hit Next. If we had additional support documentation, I could add it here, but I'm just going to click Submit, review the summary, and it has now been submitted to the Evolve platform, where somebody can go in, they can review it, and they can begin the assembly of that API. Now that we've created the change script, let's look at how we can take it and make it available to the MCP server as an AI tool. Within Evolve, under Solutions, you see we have that SAP Data API Scripts. At the very top is the script that we just created and saved within our Studio environment. I can review it, be able to see both the input and the output payloads coming from this JSON file, as well as when I'm ready, I can click on this and assemble the new tool. When I assemble it, I'm going to identify the LLM connection. I'm going to map it to the specific SAP environment that we're going to be using. And then for the beta portion, I'm going to put in my login credentials and click Confirm. Evolve will begin to assemble the tool and give me that validation down here at the bottom. Once it has been assembled, it will then show up in the operations section under the AI tools, hopefully with a status of ready to use. So if I come here down under operations, AI tools, there you can see the API that we just assembled. It is then showing a status now of enabled or ready to be used. You can see allow write operations set to true. There's even a brief description of this particular API. So at this point, it is now ready to be used with the Evolve MCP server. Now that we've created and updated our tools, I'm going to make use of two of our AI tools for this use case. Using Claude, we can use natural language to review the data, make changes, and then upload the data back into SAP using the Studio script that we just assembled. All of this is simply with no interaction with the SAP GUI. I'm going to start by asking Claude if it is connected to our Evolve system. And as you can see, we're getting a response that yes, it is responding. Now I'll ask Claude what tools are available for the Evolve MCP server. And as it comes back, it's going to show me the full list of the 9 different tools that are available. For our purposes for this demonstration, we're going to be focusing in on number 7 and number 9, which is the product master data, where we can actually do queries into our SAP environment, and then the update product, which is giving us the ability to do the posting. Next, I'm going to ask it to go in to drill into SAP and find specific materials within a particular plant. So here, I'm going to ask it to find just 10 materials within my SAP instance, and in that specific plant is 1710, whose material numbers start with SG. And as you can see, it's using the product service, and is then going to give me the material number and the plant for those specific products. But now, let's continue drilling in a little bit deeper. I'm now going to ask it to pull the weight material, the weight fields for these particular materials. And when it retrieves that data, you'll see is that it's actually not only going to pull the data, but it's also going to start giving us a comparison of the information that it is finding. So if I scroll down a little bit farther, you can see there are 3 particular records that have a very large gross weight relative to the net weight. So it's now making suggestions, should I update these values within the environment? Again, all this is being done without any interaction with the SAP GUI. For our demonstration, we're just going to focus in on one of the materials and asking it to change material SG033 to the gross weight of 34.3. Now, what's important here is that Claude, again, isn't making any updates and stopping. It's immediately reading the data to confirm the changes, and then it's doing the corrections. And in our example here, it's also going to give us a comparison of what the old value was and then the new value within our SAP environment. Before I wrap up, let me quickly highlight what we just saw. In a traditional SAP environment, you might spot an issue with T-code MMO3, but then you have to jump into the MMO2 T-code to fix it. You then have to re-enter the materials, reselect the views, and then manually update the data. It's fragmented and time-consuming. But here, the conversation just continues. We go from discovery to fix to verify in one seamless flow without losing focus. With that, what you just saw is a shift from navigating SAP transactions to simply expressing intent. Instead of jumping between T-codes, the user works through a single guided interaction. Behind the scenes, Claude, the MCP server, and Studio are working together, so while the experience feels simple, it's still controlled and reliable. The result is faster updates, less effort for the users, and a more consistent data. Ready to learn more? Let's continue the conversation. Contact us for more information or to book a personalized demo. You can also explore Automate Evolve resources, demos, white papers, and case studies on our website. I want to thank you for your time today. Have a great day.